Good morning to Ms. Pratina. Today, my group mates and I would be presenting about identity status theory. My name is Yuva. I will start the presentation by presenting about the introduction. So, this identity status theory is developed by James Marcia in 1966. The onset of this identity status theory would be around their adolescent stage until their early adulthood, which is around 24 years old. When individual, okay, so basically what is this identity status theory is about is when an individual identify their role models who provide them with options to explore who they can be in future. Besides that, I would like to emphasize that it is not necessary for all adolescents or an individual to undergo all these four stages. Like first, for example, they follow up, like start with identity diffusion, identity foreclosure, identity moratorium, and identity achievement. They could actually skip one stages and go to the another stage. So now I would like to pass the floor to Kian.
Thank you, Yuva. So next on, before we heading on to introduce you about the 4 different identity status, so I would like to share some keywords and key points that you should know beforehand. All right, the first one, crisis. So crisis, as we can think of, it could be defined in many different ways. So you can either find in Google, internet, or even dictionary. So in this theory, crisis refers to the unpleasant events. So the example could be parental divorce and violent assault. So this will result in internal conflict within an adolescent, and they will even having doubt with self-value and their beliefs. So next on, exploration and commitment. So exploration here refers to the behavior of they are trying to search for their self-value and identity, whereby commitment refers to the degree of they agree to a particular identity. So besides that, identity range from 4 different categories. So the first one, diffusion, which Gandes will introduce the identity diffusion. Indeterminate, in identity foreclosure, precisely defined, identity moratorium, and lastly, high specification identity achievement. So note that each category will be classified based on the degree of exploration and commitment. So here we could say that it could be high in exploration or low in commitment. Well, next I will pass it to Gandes.
My name is Gandes and I'm going to be explaining about identity diffusion. Identity diffusion is Marcia's term for the status of individuals who have not experienced a crisis. In this case, means explored meaningful alternatives or make any commitment in their life. They have low degree of exploration and commitment, and they have not fully realized their social identity or defined their personality traits. They deal with life and situations reactively and passively. To understand identity diffusion better, I'm going to give you an example. An example would be when a teenage girl is asked what career she wants to have in the future. She would then realize that she has not thought of any of this and decide to not commit to any career because she is still unsure of what she actually wants to be in the future. Next, I'm going to be talking about the behavior of people with this identity diffusion status. They tend to be passive and live in the moment with no consideration of who they are or who they want to be. They tend to live trying to avoid pain and seek pleasure. They also tend to lack self-esteem, and according to previous research, they also tend to feel isolated and withdraw themselves from the world. For adolescents with identity diffusion, they tend to show lack of consideration and commitment in the area of politics, religion, and other worldviews. For example, when a boy is asked who he wants to vote for in the election of president, he would not have any consideration towards who he wants to pick. Due to this, they may come off as slackers or underachievers.
Moving on to the second identity, which is identity foreclosure. In this status, the identity represents a low degree of exploration and high degree of commitment. The adolescents who fall in this identity are accepting and trying anything that comes to them passively. In other words, these adolescents passively accept the identity that assigned to them by family, friends, or community. Besides that, they are passively trying to determine what is important to them. For example, they are less likely to take the initiative to identify what is important and what is not important to them. So, this attitude refers to the low degree of exploration. Lastly, these adolescents accept the values and beliefs that learn from the family, culture, and community without questioning. For example, Jasmine, who is an adolescent, has no idea about her future. In the meanwhile, her parents, who are doctors, always input their beliefs such as doctor is the best career over many careers. Hence, Jasmine just accepts and follows the strong belief without questioning. And next, I will pass the floor to Rachel.
So I'm Rachel. I'll be continuing on by talking about identity moratorium. So identity moratorium is a status that describes those who are actively exploring in an attempt to establish an identity, but have yet to have made any commitment. This is also a period of identity development that occurs after the adolescent stage of identity diffusion, and is generally considered the longest period of that development. It's a period of active searching and exploring alternatives to current situations. This time can be an anxious and emotionally tense period as the adolescent experiments with different roles and explores various beliefs. This moratorium phase is the precursor to identity achievement. During the moratorium period, it is just normal for adolescents to be rebellious and uncooperative. They avoid dealing with problems, procrastinate, experience low self-esteem, feeling anxious and uncertain about their decisions. This can also be seen as a time where a person questions their earlier choices, whether or not to change college majors, whether to marry or remain single, exploration of sexual identity, and others. Once these questions are resolved, a person finally approaches the stage of identity achievement, in which the individual finds their true sense of self. And that's all from me. I'll pass the floor to the next person.
This stage, adolescents would experience high degree of exploration and high degree of commitment. This identity achievement stage achieved by an adolescent who has undergone a crisis in previous 3 stages, and now in this stage they have made a commitment to a particular identity. So in this stage, adolescents will have already decided what are the values, what are the most important goals in their life. And they also decided what is the purpose or mission in their life that would direct them to a certain part or certain way in their life. Adolescents also feel self-acceptance, stable self-definition, and are committed to their identity. So an example situation would be a parents of a girl wanted her to be a pediatrician in future. However, she has discovered that she is more passionate and talented in fashion designing. So now you could see that girl is has actually in identity achievement stage, in which she knows what is important for her and what she wants in her life. So she is proceeding her studies in fashion designing field instead of fulfilling her parents' ambition. She also believed that she would be more satisfied working in the future. So they feel self-acceptance and they have stable self-definition in which what they are leading to in future. Now I would like to pass the floor to the next.
In summary, so there are 4 different identity statuses were introduced. So the first one, identity diffusion. So identity diffusion here refers to the low degree of exploration and commitment. So normally they are not in the condition of experiencing crisis. The second one, identity foreclosure. So this refers to an adolescent having a low degree of exploration, but high degree in commitment. So they are trying to passively accept the beliefs, self-value, or even opinions and thoughts from families, culture, friends, and also community. Next up, identity moratorium. So identity moratorium, this is a condition whereby the adolescents will experience a crisis. So they will actually high degree in exploration, but low degree in commitment. So basically in this stage, adolescents will be more anxious or maybe emotionally tense. The last one, identity achievement. So this identity achievement, basically you can see from the words itself. So it means an adolescent already achieved and successfully achieved their identity that they want and successfully committed to a particular identity. Nevertheless, please note that adolescents were not necessary to experience all of the stages or all of the statuses. They could also possibly engage in one or two statuses at the same time and possibly retreat to the previous identity status they have experienced. Well, that's all for our presentation. Thank you for your listening.